Okay, guys, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and show you my slides. And first of all, to everybody that's on today, thank you so much for joining. Again, my name is Amy Hedemio. I'm the scientific director over at Body Science. We're a large functional medical clinic here in Miami. And one of our goals for the new year was to provide education. I see folks asking questions all the time online. And sometimes for me, I'll take the time and write an explanation. And sometimes I just don't have a chance. And oftentimes what I'll see is a lot of folks trying to get the answers that they need. Some information that's being given that's accurate, and some of it that's misinformation, and a lot of folks struggling. And so as a group here at Body Science, we treat a lot of MTHFR, we treat a lot of inflammatory conditions, and in a number of folks that suffer with those conditions, they have MTHFR. So what we wanted to do was start a group of classes. They're all being offered at no charge. Our goal is not to charge, but instead just to provide the kind of education and information that everybody is asking for. My office runs the MTHFR experts page, and so I'll routinely find questions over there and feel like the better option is not really to try and get back in touch with every last email and every last text, but rather to ask what you guys think is important. I did in December. I had just introduced myself on the Facebook page and let you know that my office, my team and I, we would be looking to start an educational series and to ask what kind of questions that you had. And I'm thrilled to say we got tons of responses, and now what we'll do is 2 times a week, so both Monday and Thursday. For the next 4 weeks, we'll hold 8 classes and just try and make sure everybody has the information that they need. From my vantage point, if you have the answers that you need when it comes to MTHFR, you can certainly navigate symptoms a lot easier, and also kind of see clearly which part is MTHFR, which part is inflammation, which part is hormone dysregulation, and it will allow you to really determine how you want to start from a treatment and how you want to categorize what's going on with your symptoms. So with that, let me pull up my slide deck. Here is my goal, at least for the first conversation that we're having today. I'd like to spend about 20-25 minutes. I just want to go through some general concepts, and then over the upcoming couple of courses, we'll focus on things like thyroid. We'll focus on female and male reproductive hormones and the role that they play in MTHFR. We'll talk about toxins and MTHFR. We'll talk about symptoms in MTHFR. So again, my goal in today's call is to give a basic introduction so you know who I am and why I'm doing this, and to give some general ideas of MTHFR and how to manage it better. All right, so with that, let me hit the share screen button and let me find my slide deck. And let me go ahead and set it up as projector mode. Okay, there we go. So the title, How to Feel Best with This Gene, and that's to say if you have MTHFR, you are not doomed to feel lousy. Instead, oftentimes, the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase mutation will allow toxins to build up, and those toxins, that's what's creating the symptoms. It's what's causing the endocrine disruption, so the hormones to dysregulate. And again, let's see if together we can get a clear understanding of how to take that whole MTHFR picture apart, put it in the different categories that it belongs, and find some reasonable treatment options. Okay, my name is Amy Hedemio. I am the scientific director. We're sitting here at Body Science right now. Body Science is a large 6,000 square foot medical clinic that's here in Miami. And again, we get involved with all kinds of functional stuff. So functional for me is finding the root cause. And oftentimes MTHFR is the genetic predisposition, meaning it is the root cause. The environmental exposures, that's what allows the gene to kind of turn on and become symptomatic. Remember, lots of people have MTHFR. A large majority of the people that do have a SNP or single nucleotide that's polymorphized or that's changed in their DNA that leads to MTHFR. Lots of people that have those mutations do not have symptoms. Instead, what you're looking at is not genetics, but genomics. You're looking at how things factor into the environment. So again, I'm Amy. I'm over here at Body Science. My team and I run the MTHFR Experts blog so that we can try and get as many answers and information for you as possible. Some of you have heard my story in the past. I'll make it short for you. The long and short of the whole thing, not only do I have MTHFR, but no surprise, my mom does, and she's got a couple of copies. And what happened, my mom did not have a lot of symptoms of MTHFR when I was younger. And it really wasn't until I got to high school and more so in college that she started suffering with a number of MTHFR related issues. Menopause was the kicking off point. So the dysregulation of estrogen and progesterone causing estrogen dominance in menopause in combination with estrogen dominance resulting from MTHFR that had already been in place made for some very, very difficult years. It wasn't just the estrogen dominance coming from MTHFR, but it was the blood sugar dysregulation and the thyroid dysregulation in combination with it. And it made for my mom some very, very miserable years. And for me, I really wasn't sure what was going on. I knew my mom was not doing well physically. I knew my mom was not doing well mentally. I knew my mom was not doing well emotionally. And in spite of all of that, I didn't understand MTHFR. This is about 15 years ago. I was unfamiliar with it. She and I, along with my dad, saw a lot of specialists. The acronym MTHFR never came up. They had made all kinds of recommendations for medication. So I'm sure for a lot of you that are on today, you've either thought about these medications or tried them yourself. So my mom was having a hard time emotionally. So medication for depression was suggested and then ultimately prescribed. Medication for sleep, which led ultimately to a medication for wake. There was thyroid medication that was put on board. There was blood sugar medication put on board. In truth, I don't remember when my mom felt the worst, before all the medical intervention, during or after. What compounded a lot of her symptoms, a lot of medication. And here's the thing, I'm not suggesting that medication is good. I'm not suggesting medication is bad. What I am suggesting is when it comes to MTHFR, if you're not treating the root cause and instead you're band-aiding the symptoms, commonly in a situation like MTHFR, where we are poor detoxifiers, some medication can do nothing more but add to the toxic burden and create even more symptoms. So, why am I passionate about MTHFR and running a clinic where we focus largely on toxicity, the diseases that stem from reaching your toxic burden, and in particular MTHFR, along with a number of other mutations that are involved with either phase 1 or phase 2 liver detox? Well, I'm passionate about it because I watched my mom in the most grueling fashion ever go through a process that was painful. It was emotionally painful. For my mom, it was difficult to go through it. I could tell you from my side as well, just super terrible to watch, just the really low lows that my mom felt. So when it came time on my side and my whole team actually to decide how we wanted to focus our functional medical clinic, there was no mistaking the fact that metabolic dysregulation or mitochondrial inefficiency or toxicity errors or MTHFR, right, because it's all one and the same, it affects an unbelievably large number of people. And many of them don't know that it's MTHFR behind the scenes causing the problems, and they don't know how to get the treatment that they need. So again, going to the New Year's resolution for me this year and for my whole team down here at Body Science, our goal is to try and bring as much education as we possibly can. And to that point, what we'll do here as a team is an 8-part series. So again, 2 classes per week We'll try and keep them to about 30 minutes and then answer questions afterwards if you have some questions. Each meeting to focus on a different topic. And our mission by the time we get to the end of the 8th class is to make sure everybody that's been tuning in has the information that they need to be happy and healthy, even with their MTHFR mutation. Okay, so again, who are we? The medical director, Dr. Farrow, and I think he'll be joining us for one of these classes. His background is functional medicine. He is OB-GYN. So for all the ladies that are out there who've had questions about fertility, who've had questions about menopause, perimenopause, difficulty with menstruation, irregular cycles, PCOS, it's an area that we focus largely on in any number of women, but our focus especially in women with MTHFR. I'm the scientific director and my background is science. And again, we run a clinic that's down here in Miami. Okay, so let's get to the heart of things. And the question is, what are common symptoms of MTHFR? And everybody that's on this call, either because you have MTHFR or because you are living with somebody or a supporter for somebody that has MTHFR and you want to know more about it. So these are common. And remember, MTHFR is an error that decreases the amount of detoxification, right? So it is a methylation mutation, meaning methylation is phase 2 liver detox. It is a donor of carbon. I can imagine you guys are like, what the heck does that mean? So I realized even before I go down that road, let me just tell you, it's a way to throw out a specific kind of garbage. So there are certain toxins that must be methylated in order to throw them away properly. Methylation happens largely in the liver. Phase 2, where you take junk that you're trying to get rid of, you methylate it in order to put it in the right garbage can, and then it gets sent to the intestines, typically for removal or elimination in the stool. And so the question is, what happens when that process does not work properly? What happens when you can't methylate garbage? What happens when you get a folate reductase mutation, so you can't properly make methyl groups? All right, so now let's reverse that just for a minute and spend a little bit of time talking about it. Methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. So the methyl part, that's the carbon donor. It's a carbon with 3 hydrogens. Tetrahydra is nothing more than kind of the shape and the look of it. So I could call myself Amy right-handed, ARH, or I could say methyl tetrahydra, MTH, right? So you're just looking at not just a methyl group, but kind of the way it faces and the way it looks. And the second part of the acronym, the FR, is the other really important part, folate reductase. So if you know anything about MTHFR, you've come across the role of folate reductase. Remember, folate comes from foods, and then your job, if you're in the mitochondria, is to produce folate reductase in order to take folate and put it in the right shape, the right size, the right form. So a methyl tetrahydrofolate, right? And so folate reductase is critical at activating folate into its methyl tetrahydra form, right? So until folate is methylated and activated by the folate reductase enzyme, it doesn't work. And so when there isn't enough folate reductase to properly use folate, move it down the mitochondria and ultimately make energy and detoxifiers and antioxidants with it, then people build up toxins. And so what we're looking at here on the right side of the screen is common symptoms, not even of MTHFR, right, but more results of being toxic. So if you can't properly methylate, if you don't have enough of the enzyme folate reductase, then toxins are going to build up, and specifically the toxins that require methylation. So migraines become common. If you're a woman, irregular periods or clotty periods or crampy periods. A question that I get routinely, whether or not the average woman has cramps or should have cramps during her period, and the answer is no. The average woman should not really suffer with debilitating cramps. You're looking at an imbalance of estrogen to progesterone, and the reason that occurs more commonly in women with MTHFR is because estrogen has to be methylated out for removal. And so for folks that are poor methylators, estrogen can build up and can cause a relative ratio between estrogen and progesterone that favors estrogen. Again, that condition is called estrogen dominance. If you're a woman on this call and you're unfamiliar with the term estrogen dominance or the condition estrogen dominance, you may want to Google just to look for the symptoms. My guess is a number of the symptoms that you have or have had in the past are estrogen dominant symptoms. Again, methylation is required to remove estrogen. Hot flashes, whether that's thyroid dysregulation from toxins building up or estrogen buildup both in men and women. Weight gain is a common secondary consequence of MTHFR when the gene is activated by toxins. Foggy brain, and what goes along with that is poor focus, poor concentration. Fatigue, skin problems, so whether it's acne or dry skin, so acne from things like estrogen testosterone imbalance and sometimes progesterone in the midface, or whether it's really dry skin from thyroid dysregulation. Increased anxiety, difficulty sleeping. If the difficulty sleeping is with a result from thyroid, they're shocked, kind of wake up. If it's a result of progesterone and testosterone, just the routine wake-ups all night that can be so maddening. Generalized inflammation and just feeling not just depressed, but low motivation. So it looks like the night before planning all the things you want to do the following day, and then waking up in the morning and just feeling like, meh, I don't care. I don't care if I want to do them or not. And again, if you have MTHFR and you have a toxic burden, then low motivation is likely something that you've had. Interestingly, more than 40% of the worldwide population has at least one single nucleotide that is polymorphized in the MTHFR gene. So almost imagine you're talking about 4 out of every 10 people, 40 out of every 100 people, 400 out of every 1,000. Okay, I know that seems redundant, but it's a huge number of people. And so here's what I'm saying, that just because you have MTHFR, it doesn't mean that you're doomed to feel lousy. Instead, lots of people have MTHFR, but they live clean, and they're able to remove toxins that they have accumulated, and through that process reset any hormone dysregulations that are causing lots of symptoms and get back to feeling great. So if you're somebody that's over there just feeling like, I'll never feel great, I've been feeling lousy for so long, just know MTHFR is a very treatable condition. The symptoms that are associated with MTHFR, or to say it differently, the symptoms that are associated with toxicity are very reversible as well. So even though you've been feeling lousy for a while, doesn't mean that that's the place that you belong, doesn't mean that that's the place that you're stuck. You're just somebody that has toxic buildup. You're a poor detoxifier, so that's why that happened. And now the goal is to work with your practitioner and methylate out the toxins, avoid future toxins, and be careful when it comes to folic acid. And we'll talk about folic acid, all right? Okay, so what we're talking about is four, I don't know, kind of pillars, I guess, of MTHFR. So thing number one, bullet point number one, MTHFR predisposes people to become more toxic more quickly than the average person. Okay, so if it's an individual that doesn't have MTHFR and they walk into a perfume store, right, where there's like all the chemicals from perfume, and if there's some cleaning solvents over there in addition to it, and some new carpet. So if anybody's MTHFR and you're on your side going, oh, that'd be horrible because there's so many odors that are going to make me feel bad and give me a migraine. So MTHFR, we're the folks that know that that environment is toxic and we've got to get out. And for other folks, because they're able to detoxify more rapidly, they may not even perceive that as being a problem. I would tell you, and anybody that's heard me speak before, you folks know that I see MTHFR as a superpower. So if you're not seeing it that way, I'd encourage you to reframe it in your mind. MTHFR is what allows us, the folks that actually have it, to recognize when we're in a toxic environment and get out quick. Okay, so the goal is if you start noticing symptoms, so whether it's foggy brain, whether it's fatigue, whether it's a low-grade headache, but if you're somewhere and you start feeling like that, then either there's mold, for example, because that's really tough for us folks with MTHFR, or there's some kind of chemical that's over there. It could be a room deodorizer. It could be, what is that smelly stuff? The things that you spray, or a room freshener. Those things can be just terrible, or any kind of chemical agent. So again, if you go somewhere and you just notice all of a sudden you don't feel well, get out and get out fast. So that's thing number one. Okay, bullet point number two, glands are the first area of the body, it's the first tissue type that's going to become toxic. They absorb toxins, glands do, faster than any other part of the body. So what are we talking about? We're talking about thyroid, right? That's why thyroid dysregulation is such a common secondary consequence for folks that are poor detoxifiers. Ovaries in women, testes in men, and that's the reason that estrogen, testosterone, progesterone can dysregulate so quickly. And so just know glandular issues, glandular problems are kind of at the top of the list. The pancreas, right? And so all the blood sugar dysregulation. Bullet point number four, bodies have certain genetic weak points. This means these are the areas that are most vulnerable. So here's really the bottom line. If you have MTHFR and you're wondering which is your weak spot, so if you add enough toxins, what's the first area that's going to become symptomatic? Your easiest way to know is to take a look at your family history. So if you have a strong family history of diabetes or pre-diabetes, then insulin receptors and insulin sensitivities are likely an area that inflammation is going to go after and damage. If you've got a strong family history of thyroid, then thyroid tissue is likely something that inflammation is going to go after. If you've got family history of hypertension or dyslipidemia, so where bad cholesterol is much, much higher than good cholesterol. So we all have kind of genetic weak links in our chain, in our genetic chain. And the area that's going to have the most difficulty as you build up in toxins can commonly be determined ahead of time if you can see your family history. And that's the one that you want to watch the most carefully. It's the one that is the most delicate, the one that will likely break first. And so you want to keep an eye on it. Again, if you've got a strong family history of diabetes, type 2, remember that's an autoimmune disorder where the body, the immune system attacks the insulin receptors. And it does that because the immune system becomes confused. And oftentimes the part that confuses the immune system is a buildup of toxins, right? So again, that's the link between folks like us, right? Poor detoxifiers, and an area of the body that the immune system is going to mistakenly set its sights on and start causing damage to. And then finally, the genetic predisposition. So that's actually what we're just talking about. If family members have thyroid dysregulation, then genetically speaking, you'd be at higher risk for the exact same thing if you become toxic. So, we're saying the same thing, which is if you're a poor detoxifier, get clean, stay clean, find a way to avoid toxins. Okay, so a handful of things to think about. And again, my goal in this call is not to over science. Sometimes when I do these webinars, I'll pull out the full bio pathway and look at the physiology behind MTHFR. That's not my goal today. Instead, my goal is to just discuss a handful of things, give you some general information, ask if you guys have any questions, and then follow up with a little more in-depth science and physiology on the next call, which will be Thursday. Okay, so then the four things that I'd like to focus on: what is folate and how does it differ from folic acid? What exactly is methylation? How should you supplement? And when is it time to detox? And just know we will have a full conversation on supplements. The reason I know it's one of the biggest questions out there, and commonly here in my office, people are either over supplementing and making themselves sick, or they don't quite have enough supplementation. My preference is always to try and get as many nutrients from your food and just use supplements to get to the rest. We'll touch on it again briefly today. And then on a full conversation, we'll actually go through some of the supplements that seem to be very, very effective. Okay, number one, folate versus folic acid. So, and if you don't, then let's get 100% clear on the fact that folate is a natural B vitamin and folic acid is a synthetic, man-made version of folate that's used. So it's tough sometimes to have access to folate-rich foods. And that's to say, a lot of people live in food deserts. A lot of people go extended periods of time without fresh veggies and fresh fruit. And so folate levels can run pretty low. And an area or a group of women where the level of folate becomes super important is any woman that's pregnant. And so as a goal, you keep folate levels high in women that are pregnant, but that can be tough to do. What if really you don't have a diet that's rich in fruits and veggies? And so the regulatory approach is to take a synthetic version, folic acid, and dump it into, I don't know, a ton of food, whether it's bread, pasta, rice, pretty much anything that's going to be called enriched. Breakfast cereals are at the higher part of that list. Anything that's targeted towards women that are thinking about becoming pregnant, women that are pregnant, and children. So when you think about packaged cereals, when you think about packaged enriched rice, when you think about packaged enriched grains, again, bread, that kind of stuff, very, very commonly high in folic acid. And so folate for MTHFR folks is the right thing, right? It's the vitamin that we need, that everybody needs. Folic acid opposes folate. And here's how, as MTHFR individuals, we could make ourselves feel pretty sick. So poor focus, poor concentration, moody, irritable, and just generally feeling MTHFR blah, right? Would be not to have a lot of folate in our system and then to add a bunch of folic acid. So folic acid for most of us with MTHFR becomes unmetabolized folic acid, or UMFA. If the amount of folic acid or unmetabolized folic acid is significantly higher than the amount of natural folate, we'll become symptomatic. So the idea of not eating processed foods, not eating enriched foods, or again, things with synthetic vitamins, not taking synthetic vitamins, not taking things that have folic acid. Be careful again with folic acid. You want to look for it in any of the ingredient lists of anything that you're eating. And if you have MTHFR, you want to avoid it. You always want your folate level, your methyl tetrahydrofolate, or again, folate, where you use natural folate reductase to make methyl tetrahydrofolate. So again, you can either take methyl tetrahydrofolate as a supplement, or you can use your own folate reductase enzyme to take the B vitamin folate and make it into methyl tetrahydrofolate. But remember, as people with MTHFR, we don't have as much folate reductase as we would if we did not have this mutation, which is the reason that a lot of folks supplement. And again, the key is not just supplementing with methyl tetrahydrofolate, but more importantly, avoiding folic acid, right? You want the ratio always favoring folate and never being in favor of folic acid. What is methylation? So we touched on it briefly. Methylation is it's a chemistry term, and so there's a lot of different detoxification systems in phase 2 of the liver. There's acetylation, there's glucuronidation, which uses glutathione, there's a sulfur-based system, and there's methylation, and there's a handful of others, but the way that I like to think of it is different garbage cans for different toxins. And so if something requires methylation for removal, you're not going to just be able to use another garbage can for it. And if you don't have enough methyl garbage cans for garbage that requires methylation, that garbage is going to spill out all over the floor, or in this case, all over the cell, and make toxicity. And so for anybody that has an MTHFR mutation, we're limited to the amount of methylation that we can produce. And the reason for that, again, is we don't have a lot of folate reductase by comparison to somebody without the mutation. So we can't properly methylate folate. And for that reason, the mitochondria can't make as many detoxifiers, antioxidants, or methyl donors like SAMe as other people that don't have the mutation. Okay, how to supplement. I think I'll come back to that on a call where we can really spend more time. Supplementation, what I would say is if you have MTHFR, be aware that adding too many supplements is just as likely to make you toxic as any other toxins. And really and truly, one of the biggest problems that I see here in the office is folks that are over supplementing and just so toxic on the supplements that they're taking. So just be careful. For me, I have a protocol depending on what your MTHFR genotype is, and I'll normally match dosing to that. And so sometimes people will ask if they know that they're positive for MTHFR, does it make any difference if they know the genotype or their genetic MTHFR code? And the answer is yes, because it's going to help dictate the amount of methylation support that you need. And then when is it time to detox? Remember, MTHFR doesn't make you sick. MTHFR is just a genetic modification. It reduces the amount of folate reductase and thereby reduces the amount of methyl donors. So we are not great at detoxifying, but if as a crew with MTHFR, we weren't coming in contact with toxins, then the fact that we've got a genetic SNP in the MTHFR genetic code wouldn't be a problem. The long and short is throughout the lifetime of any individual with MTHFR, you have been building up, or I have been building up, the toxins that MTHFR can't remove, even natural things like estrogen. We touched on estrogen a few minutes ago, but again, methylation is required to get estrogen out of the body properly. And so for women, cycle after menstrual cycle can lead to more and more estrogen dominance. For men, testosterone naturally converts into estrogen, and that's true in women as well. So estrogen can build up and lead to lots of weight gain, irritability, anxiety, food cravings. And so for me, I like, depending on your genetic mutation, I like detox and MTHFR detox a couple times in the year. A lot of you folks will ask me, the one that I use here in my office and the one that I use personally is the P5.0 detox. I personally do it twice in the year, unless I get myself dirty. My husband and I oftentimes will go out and eat things that we really shouldn't eat. And then whether it's slathering on sunscreen, whether it's drinking chlorinated and fluorinated water, whether it's parabens and phthalates in shampoo, in facial creams, in makeup, you name it. It's kind of a toxic world out there for folks like us who have MTHFR. And so for me, I detox when I start to feel MTHFR-ish is how I refer to it. And so if I'm not feeling my best, I know it's because I'm dirty, and I'll look to detoxify. The cleaner you are, the less frequently detoxification has to be. And detoxification is simply methylating out the toxins in phase 2 of liver detox. And again, for me, my preference is the P5.0 detox at the MTHFR store. Okay, and then a couple of resources for you. So I'm just wrapping up, and then I'll go over to questions for just a few minutes. So there's the MTHFR store for any kind of testing and supplements. You guys can go anywhere that you feel like you're getting good quality, professional grade, medical grade. The MTHFR store is pretty comprehensive. Find a protocol that you like, find it somewhere, find things that work for you. Here's a rule of thumb. If you're taking something for MTHFR, aside from a detox, and so during detox times, you'd expect to feel a little bit toxic. But aside from detox times, if you're taking supplements and they're making you feel not nearly as well as you should, you're taking the wrong stuff, right? Or you're taking too much of it. So reevaluate. MTHFR Experts, that's the blog that we run from Body Science. The goal really is to provide answers and solutions, and you'll see a lot of blogs. Mackenzie Kalick is the one that runs that and writes up a lot of the information. And so whether you're looking for things like foods that are the highest in folic acid, whether you're looking for things describing common symptoms and how to treat them, whether you're looking for articles on what is MTHFR, that MTHFR Experts page and the articles that are over there, well, we try anyway to make sure it's a comprehensive library of resources for you. And then if you ever needed something individualized, you're always welcome to reach out to me or to the staff here at Body Science. And we can always come up with that personalized treatment plan. And then there's the email for info@Body Science, right? That's how you can reach me directly or reach my office directly. All righty. And so that's everything that I had, guys. I'm going to stop the share and just go back to my regular screen. And I'll ask for any questions. If you have them, we'll take the next few minutes to answer them. And if you don't have any questions this time around, that's okay as well. Again, today is really more of an introduction so we can get a chance to know each other. And that way, anything that you need in the future, you're welcome to reach out to. Let me just see. Okay. How can we identify folic acid in foods? I can't find it on any labels. You should be able to, Krista, usually the label will actually say folic acid. I don't think I have a good picture right now of a label, but I'll put that in my list of things to make sure I have readily available in the future. But really, if you look on most cereal labels, those guys are some of the worst offenders. Boxed cereals, oatmeal, cream of wheat, those kinds of things, and it will actually say folic acid. Again, I don't have that up and queued at this moment, but try again looking at those labels, and you'll see it. And remember, everybody, a common term is enriched. Enriched, it sounds like it's a good thing, or vitamins added. It feels like, wow, that's so great that food manufacturer is including a group of vitamins for me. They're synthetic vitamins. They're not the same as natural vitamins. And folks like us, so folks that have MTHFR, rarely do well with those synthetic vitamins. Okay, so processed food, one of our biggest enemies. All right. Okay, here's a question. Okay, Carla, the question is about estrogen and progesterone and fertility. Okay, so I promise, again, we will be having a call that's specifically on hormones, both for men and for women. But remember, the long and short, anybody with MTHFR is more likely to become estrogen dominant or imbalanced estrogen, higher estrogen than either progesterone and testosterone, than folks that don't have MTHFR. And estrogen dominance commonly causes weight gain. It can cause cravings for foods. It can cause an increase in anxiety. It can cause generally bad mood, or if you're a woman, then you know PMS, right? That's estrogen at its finest. Too much estrogen is what causes premenstrual syndrome. And so the goal is to methylate estrogen out naturally. And then the other thing is the group of chemicals known as xenoestrogens or environmental estrogens. So that's to say, it's not just the estrogen that we make, either in the adrenal cortex for both men and women or in the ovaries for women, but rather it's that estrogen in combination with a lot of environmental estrogens. The top of that list are pesticides. So there's a lot of pesticides that to a body mimic estrogen and cause estrogen-related symptoms, and they would ordinarily be methylated out, but for poor methylators, and again, that's our category right there, then those things can build up. All right, and just keep in mind, sunscreen can be at the top of that list as well. All right, do I have any other questions? I could take probably one more, guys. So, all right, hang on, let me grab it. Okay, just one more question about folic acid and its ratio to folate. Okay, sure. So remember, it's not just folic acid and whether you eat it in food. If you could eat plenty of folate and balance out that synthetic folic acid, then you would not likely become symptomatic for MTHFR related symptoms. So the issue is when there's way too much folic acid and there isn't enough folate. And so if you eat processed foods and then you afterwards feel sluggish, moody, irritable, tired, right? And you're kind of scratching your head and wondering why. Just eating, the basic concept of eating is causing those problems. Then just remember what we're really talking about over here is the fact that you are likely coming in contact with foods that have the synthetic form, which is folic acid, and not enough folate. And so a common thing that I like is just to add folate. If ever you're going to add a methyl tetrahydrofolate supplement, it'd be a good option once those symptoms start to kick in, the MTHFR-ish symptoms that can start to kick in after you've come in contact with folic acid. By adding folate to balance it out, oftentimes you can reduce those symptoms quickly. All right. Okay, so listen, I hope that was helpful. And again, what I would tell you is here at Body Science, we really are committed to try and provide the kind of education that we know that you need when it comes to understanding MTHFR, understanding what to do in order to feel better with MTHFR, understanding how to live with MTHFR, and just knowing how to be your best self, regardless of whether you have MTHFR or not. And so to that point, we are committed. What we'll be doing is twice in the week, so Monday and Thursday, different discussions on MTHFR. Our goal by the time we get to the last one is to have covered all kinds of stuff. So thyroid dysregulation, hormones like progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, so reproductive hormones, and MTHFR, how to supplement properly with MTHFR, a little more information on detox and MTHFR, Gosh, I don't recall what else. You would think I would know what else is on our schedule, but I don't recall. But what you'll see if you take a look at the Facebook MTHFR experts page is that list is already up there, and we'll make sure to send a reminder before Thursday's call, both with the link as well as the topic. Okay, so again, if anybody needs to reach out directly, info@bodyscience.life. And thank you guys so much for joining today. And I look forward to seeing you again towards the end of the week. All right, you guys take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.